God bless you. God bless all of you. Tonight we're going to talk about hormones. It's a really, really fun topic. Unfortunately, there's so much we could cover, and of course we're not going to be able to cover all of it. So we're going to focus on some main issues, really some of the main issues that people are dealing with. We're going to focus mainly on the thyroid, adrenals, and women's health when it comes to estrogen and progesterone imbalances. And we'll talk about a couple things for men too. Don't worry, we won't leave you guys out. Hormones involves men and women, of course. A lot of men don't think they have hormonal problems, and they actually do. It's okay, you have hormones too. But it's much more common to talk about hormones, especially with women, because they were blessed with the ability to carry a child, and they do have a little bit more complicated systems. So we'll get into all of that. So first of all, what is a hormone? Hormone comes from a Greek word. It means a driving force, an impulse, or an incentive. It's a chemical that's released by a cell or a gland in one part of the body that sends out messages that affect cells in other parts of the organism. It's really interesting how hormones are secreted in such minute amounts. It's almost beyond measure, and I don't know how they measure it, but thyroid hormone, for example, they measure as much as 1/1,000,000th of a gram of thyroid hormone is often produced to actually perform an action in the body, to stimulate a response in the body. So when we get into hormone balancing, you'll see why it's so hard for us to balance hormones in our society, especially using some of the methods that we're trying to use today. So a small amount is required to actually alter cell metabolism. In essence, it's a chemical messenger that transports a signal from one cell to another. And when I say multicellular organisms, I'm talking about plants, people, animals. We all produce hormones. Plants produce hormones. They're called, the word phytohormones. You've heard of phyto, like phytoestrogens, phytonutrients, phytogenesis. These are all plant-related terms. Paragraph B, hormones, it's your life force. I always give the example of if you need to rescue someone from a burning building or lift a car off of someone, you need hormones. You need adrenaline. So hormones are what makes you go. And as our hormones start to deplete as we age, which is going to happen inevitably, because we live in physical bodies that are prone to sickness and degeneration, we have to work a little bit harder at it the older we get. Let me just put it that way. So it's why children heal so quickly. It's why they get sick and they can recover very fast. Of course, we're seeing that that's happening less and less. But the older we get, the more we got to work at it. Basically, once we get past the age of 35 to 40, we really have to start doing things and being more careful when it comes to our hormone health to have good longevity. It's really interesting when they study cultures around the world. They've actually done autopsies on a lot of cultures, bodies. I don't know what other term to use, but the autopsies they've done on bodies in other cultures, they've found that when they look at the different glands of the endocrine system, that they basically look the same upon inspection of them in these other cultures, whereas in America and a lot of industrialized Western cultures, and they investigate these same endocrine glands, they find that they've actually shriveled and they've shrank and they've atrophied. And it's because of our poor lifestyle choices, that our glands are actually shrinking and our hormones aren't working into old age. We'll talk more about that, but I just thought that was really interesting. But if you think about some of the most important functions that happen in the human body, they happen from hormones. The growth, as you grow as a child, development, energy, metabolism, digestion, so many functions are controlled by hormones. So we see why this is such an issue in our world today with the hormone imbalances, how we need to find good natural ways to have healthy hormones. Paragraph C. This is just a rundown of the main endocrine glands in the body. But starting from the top down, basically, we got the pineal gland, hypothalamus, pituitary, thyroid, and parathyroid, thymus, adrenal glands, ovaries, testes, and prostate. Paragraph D, is there a hormone problem in America? I think it's pretty obvious. I could have probably listed about 50 things here, but I chose a couple. Very irregular cycles in women, decreased sexual function. Actually, symptoms, having the major symptoms of menopause is a sign of hormone imbalance. We'll talk about that in more detail. Infertility, big issue these days. Increased rate of cancer, specifically endocrine-related cancers, breast cancer, prostate cancer in men. And thyroid disorders are rampant. That is probably the number one thing I deal with in seeing people on a day-to-day basis, especially with women, is thyroid dysfunction. And the two major ones are thyroid and adrenal dysfunction. That's why I'm really going to hit those pretty hard tonight, because those are the main ones. And then young girls going through puberty at a very young age. It should be 13-ish, and it's happening probably average 9, 10. Some girls even have symptoms of having breast growth and signs of maturity at the age of 5 and 6 years old. So, yeah, there's definitely a problem that needs to be addressed. So I'm just going to go right into the thyroid gland. Thyroid comes from the Greek word thyros, which means shield. And it's butterfly-shaped. It actually looks like two little shields. But it has an amazing role at protecting the body. They know this through studying it, and it's amazing that the thyroid serves such an important function, and it is so small. It weighs about an ounce. It is one of the smallest parts of the human body, and it's one of the most critical parts and one of the most out of balance parts of the human body. And the reason it's so out of balance is because it's our shield. It's our protector. All of the things that we're bombarded with, the thyroid has to help deal with that, balance it, offset it, protect, shield the body from harm, damage. When you look at what happened over at Fukushima, the natural disaster, or you look back at the disaster in Chernobyl, all the radiation, so many horrible things happen from those disasters, but the number one thing they find is endocrine disruption and thyroid disease from the radiation damage. That's why people were going, like iodine was flying off the shelf during the Fukushima disaster, because iodine protects the body. We'll get more into that, so I don't want to get into that too much now, but all these endocrine-related dysfunctions happen from these nuclear disasters, because the thyroid is the one that takes the brunt of a lot of that. Paragraph B, the thyroid gland and related hormones assist with many functions such as body temperature, metabolism, fertility, digestion, and energy levels. The thyroid also controls the heartbeat. So a lot of people have a regular heartbeat, and that's from a thyroid disorder as well. So the thyroid's critical for so many different functions. Probably not telling you guys anything you don't already know. The thyroid is very important. And everything in the endocrine system works as, I explain it like a symphony. Okay, you can have the most beautiful symphony, a 15, 20-piece orchestra, and if one instrument or one person is out of alignment, the whole symphony just doesn't sound that great anymore. And it's kind of the same with our endocrine system. If our thyroid gets out of balance, it can really affect our adrenal glands, our pituitary, our hypothalamus. What happens when one gland gets out of balance is the other ones try to compensate. They try to make up for it. So we end up getting dysfunction in multiple glands. And I kind of go into some detail about T3, T4, some of the hormones that the thyroid produces. I don't want to get too much into that, but I do want to make the point that the liver is very important for thyroid function, because the liver is what converts thyroid hormone, inactive thyroid hormone, into active T3, which is critical for your hair, skin, nails being thin, metabolism. You need T3 for that, and you need liver function, good liver function for that. So I just wanted to make that point that the liver is also very important when it comes to thyroid function. And also the ovaries. Thyroid and ovaries are very, very closely related. There's a lot of women having problems with their ovaries, ovarian cysts. There's almost always a thyroid connection to that. And especially if the ovaries are removed or a partial or full hysterectomy is performed, again, it's not that your body stops producing hormones. Your body's still producing hormones. They're just coming from other places, mainly the adrenal glands, and we'll get to the adrenal glands. But it's very important to understand that you have to support the whole system, especially when something gets removed or something's not functioning properly. And then paragraph E, the adrenal glands are also critical, as I just mentioned. So if the adrenals get weak, the thyroid will try to compensate. So some of the symptoms, paragraph 3, or Roman numeral 3, symptoms of an underactive thyroid gland. A lot of you here are probably familiar with some of these symptoms. Sluggishness, weight gain, cold body temperature, poor hair, skin, nails, hair loss, dry skin. A lot of other issues can be short-term memory, hypoglycemia, depression, dementia, emotional instability, etc. Autoimmune condition of thyroid disorders is called Hashimoto's. There's also Graves' disease, which I didn't mention here. These are mainly a problem in our environment, and I've talked about this in past classes, but a lot of this has to do with the food we're eating. The autoimmune reactions are coming from reactions to food or some other foreign contaminant in the bloodstream that the body's created an antibody response form to. So I make that point that if you have Hashimoto's disease, the fix isn't necessarily a medication. That's what often happens is you're given Synthroid or something like that. The key is to remove the offending whatever substances from the body that's causing the autoimmune reaction, and that's what's never addressed. Weight stored in the front, the abdomen and thighs, and the low body basal temperature. So I gave you just real briefly a way to check your basal temperature if anyone's interested in that, if they think they might have. And this is actually one of the most accurate tests to see if you have thyroid dysfunction. A lot of the medical tests aren't incredibly accurate when it comes to checking thyroid levels. What they consider normal levels can already show the sign of a dysfunctional thyroid. One of the herbalists I work with, he said, and I don't know this percentage for sure, but he felt that you've lost about 70% of thyroid function by the time it actually shows up on a conventional medical test that you actually have a problem with your thyroid. You've actually lost a great deal of your thyroid function already. So this is a great little test to see if you have an issue with your thyroid. It's just checking your body temperature first thing in the morning consistently for a few days and seeing if you have a low body temperature. That's a telltale sign of an underactive thyroid. And then paragraph D, real quick, just on overactive thyroid, the symptoms include feeling wired, jittery, nervousness, anxious, really rapid heartbeat, palpitations. Those are symptoms of an overactive thyroid. Rapid weight loss, overactive thyroid. So Roman numeral 4, some of the reasons for a thyroid imbalance. Okay, so we'll spend some time here because we haven't really addressed this yet, but we're going to talk about xenoestrogens. Who's heard that term? Okay, a couple of you. All right, cool. So this is new to a lot of you guys. What a xenoestrogen is a synthetic estrogen. And it's actually not even estrogen. It's something that mimics estrogen. So what happens is these synthetic or estrogen mimickers get into the body and they completely disrupt hormone function. The example I give people that hopefully makes it make sense is you have receptors in your body. I wish I had a little chalkboard, but you have receptors in their body and they have a distinct shape to them. It's almost like a lock and key mechanism. So they have this specific shape, the receptor sites, and then estrogen or whatever hormone your body's producing locks into those receptor sites like a perfect lock and key. Just picture a key going into a lock perfectly. That's how it's supposed to work. When these xenoestrogens, these synthetic estrogens get into the system, they're actually hundreds or thousands of times larger than the natural hormones your body's supposed to be producing. So what happens is that they go in there and they smash and they destroy and they disrupt these sites, these endocrine receptor sites, and they block the ability from your own healthy hormones to get in. So it's like a movie theater. If you go into, if an estrogen's produced and it's looking for a receptor to go into, and all the seats are filled, well, there's no way for it to get in. And so your body really gets broken down by these synthetic estrogens because not only are they dangerous, but the healthy hormones can't actually get in to do what they're supposed to do. So what are some examples of these xenoestrogens? Plastics, pesticides, herbicides, fuel exhaust, herbicides, birth control pills. That's a big one that I don't think is really recognized as a problem. I guess it's just because it seems so commonplace today to take birth control. BHA, which is a food preservative, hormones in meat and dairy, PCBs in paints and oils, commercial sunscreens, propylene glycol, parabens. There's so many things in our cosmetics and things that we put on our body that are these synthetic estrogens, these hormone mimickers. I'm going to give you a couple of examples just to let you know how real this is. Because a lot of us, it's not real to us because we don't know maybe that this is necessarily affecting us. But I'm going to give you a couple of examples that are kind of mind-boggling to what's happening with some of these synthetic estrogens. One is they did an analysis on fish in the Seine River. The Seine River runs through Paris. And what they found is that there were almost no male fish left. Over 90% of the fish were female. So they weren't producing offsprings. There weren't new baby fish. The reason is because of all the chemicals being dumped into the river are turning all the fish female. The same thing happened in Florida. There were some pesticides dumped in Florida, and they actually checked the alligator population. They found the alligator population plummeted, not because the pesticides killed the alligators, it's because it was shrinking, literally shrinking the sexual organs of the male alligators, and they were turning into females. So this is real, and it affects us too. Some of the ways it affects us, and some of the easiest things you can do immediately to not be affected by this, one is the food. Get the hormones out of the meat and the dairy products. That's huge, huge, huge. You guys do not want to be consuming that. And I'm gonna, this is gonna be funny, but it's a couple good movies I would recommend you watch. I'm gonna talk real briefly about plastic and about bottled water in particular. There's a movie called Tapped and there's a movie called Flow. They're both really, really good documentaries about the bottled water industry. One of the worst hormone mimickers is BPA, bisphenol A, which is in plastic products. I don't even think I put that on the list, and that's the worst one. But I did mention plastics. So you can buy BPA-free plastics. But BPA, bisphenol A, is in plastics. The reason it's a hormone mimicker and it's so dangerous, what does plastic come from? Oil, right. So we're not obviously meant to consume oil, right? I mean, we do. It's in artificial flavors and artificial ingredients in FDC, red, blue, lake, yellow, number 7, and all those crazy things. We're consuming oil. But it's also in the plastics. And the plastic leach these synthetic estrogens into the water, and we drink them. Now, if you created a plastic bottle and you let it sit for like a week so that it could air out, a lot of these synthetic compounds would actually dissipate. But if you go to a facility where they produce bottled water, you'll find that they blow up the bottles, they cool for about 5 seconds, and they put the water in it. So all of those estrogenic compounds, those xenoestrogens, are in that water bottle. The worst water you can drink for this particular example is distilled water. The reason is because distilled water is completely empty. It's completely void of all minerals or anything. So it's actually looking for something to bind to. So if you pour distilled water into a freshly created plastic bottle, you're literally just drinking synthetic estrogen. So I just wanted to make that point because I think it's important. And if you watch those documentaries, I don't want to get into it now, but if you watch those documentaries, you'll find that the bottled water industry is a total fraud. You're just basically paying a 2,000% markup for recycled tap water. It's interesting. I do these classes, and it just seems like what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to eat? What are we going to drink? Okay, we'll get into the food classes next week. I really encourage you guys to come. We're going to talk about all the positive, amazing things that you guys can do. So I'm sorry if things seem negative. I just had that revelation. So, but you do want to be careful with the plastic water bottles. Okay, paragraph B, antibiotics, chlorine from our water purification systems, fluoride, NSAID drugs, that's non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, some of the common aspirin and Tylenol and some of the things we're taking. These all kill healthy bacteria, the healthy flora in the gut. And this creates a lot of overgrowth of infectious organisms, candida, fungus, yeast, and these really affect the endocrine system and the thyroid gland as well. Mercury, that's a big one, paragraph C. Mercury released from our dental amalgams, very, very toxic to the thyroid gland. If you think about where mercury is in the mouth and where the thyroid is, and the thyroid's what? Your protector. Your thyroid's going to do everything it can to keep that mercury from going into the rest of your body. So that thyroid is absorbing a lot of that mercury if you have dental fillings. So that's something you want to definitely look at. I mentioned D, fluoride, chlorine in the water really affects thyroid function. Paragraph E, selenium deficiency. F, lack of iodine. This is a big one. I mentioned it with the nuclear disasters. You couldn't find iodine anywhere almost. I mean, I was shipping iodine to people on the West Coast and all over the place because they couldn't find it. But iodine is very protective of the body. It'll keep radiation and toxins and poisons out of the body. And the reason the way it does that is through the thyroid gland. So iodine is very important and something we're very, very deficient in here. And then x-rays. Yeah, your common x-rays. Has anybody ever got an x-ray and put on like a thyroid shield for an x-ray? Has anybody done that? A few of you? Okay. I bet a lot of you might be disturbed to know that when you go to get an x-ray, they usually get the thyroid shield with the x-ray equipment, but they don't even ask you to wear the thyroid shield. There's a reason you wear a thyroid shield when you get an x-ray, because x-rays are very, very damaging to our endocrine system and very damaging to the thyroid. That's why one of the reasons there's such an outcry over not just the privacy issues, but these scanners at the airport, not just the privacy issues, but the fact that these are radiation zapping us. And, again, if it doesn't kill us instantaneously, we just somehow live in this bubble that we think things don't harm us. So, but they are very, very dangerous. That's why when you get even an x-ray, you go to the dentist, right? You get an x-ray. What do? They put this 500-pound thing on you. Why do they do that? To absorb as much of the radiation as possible from the x-ray so that it doesn't harm your body. So, and you go get an x-ray at the doctor, and you'll notice that the doctor's at the other end of the building. He knows. The nurse isn't hanging out in the room with you when you're getting your x-ray, right? There is and I mentioned mammograms too. I mean, mammograms, and I'm going to give a percentage, and I encourage you to look it up because I don't want you to quote me that this is exactly correct. But they actually did a study in Europe that showed approximately 22% of breast cancers were actually caused by the mammogram. And this is news in Europe, but you're not going to hear about it here. Very dangerous, the radiation from the mammograms, not to mention how invasive they are. And I think I mentioned it in another class. They're not even early detection. This is not even preventative medicine. Another option is something called thermography. Has anybody here had a thermography or a thermography scan? 1, 2, cool. That's great. So thermography is more accurate. They actually send the results off to medical doctors who analyze it and send it back to you. It is pre-detection. There is no radiation. There is no touching, altering, nothing invasive. And they used to be available only in the big cities. You'd have to fly to Chicago or New York or LA to get a thermography. Luckily, they're becoming more affordable now. And the office right next door to mine, the lady, she does thermography screening. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I actually have her information on my website under resources. But that's a great alternative. I really try to let all women know about that because it's a great way to get checked out. It's very affordable, and it's so much safer, and it's so much less invasive. And then H, soy consumption, also strongly linked to thyroid disorders. We'll talk more about soy when we get into the food classes. So paragraph, Roman numeral 5, thyroid medications. So I just really want to talk real quick about what the thyroid medications do and then give you some alternatives to it. The thyroid medications are artificially replacing what your thyroid's supposed to be doing. It works. I don't want to say that it doesn't work. It does work. I know people, for example, that have had their thyroids completely removed because of thyroid cancer. They must take synthetic thyroid hormone. That's okay. It's not ideal. It's not the way God created or designed us, but it can work in emergency situations. What I want to encourage you is to not rely on a synthetic hormone, but instead focus on doing what it takes to get the thyroid gland to operate the way it was designed. And we can do that. Let's not assume that, oh, we have a thyroid problem and we're going to have to take this medication for the rest of our lives. And that's often the message we hear when we have a thyroid problem, that you will be on this the rest of your life. I can tell you from firsthand experience, working with people, that is not true. I know multiple people have been on thyroid medication and are not anymore with fully functioning thyroids. Going back to class 2, what's the cause of illness, disease, imbalance? Either nutritional deficiency, maybe it's iodine, maybe it's selenium, maybe it's some other nutrient, or the stressors, things affecting negatively that gland or organ, the radiation, mercury, eating too much gluten, foods that affect the thyroid. So if we address those two issues, the body will heal itself. That is the whole purpose of these classes, is the fact that we need to partner with God because he created a body that heals itself, and we can do that even with the thyroid gland. So what happens is when you take these synthetic thyroid medications, is it tells your thyroid it doesn't need to function anymore. Remember when I said the thyroid gland produces hormones that can be measured into the 1/1,000,000th? We're taking, I don't know how many milligrams of Synthroid and different synthetics. It's way more than the body needs. If you've ever experienced taking thyroid medication, I can almost guarantee you that they didn't get it right the first time. And I see a lot of heads nodding. The reason they don't get it right the first time is because it's so much more than the body naturally produces. It's so hard to find that balance. It's synthetic, and the body's like, whoa, what's this? Okay, well, I can kind of recognize what that is. Maybe I can use that a little bit, but it overstimulates the gland oftentimes and causes the signs of an overactive thyroid. They have to keep adjusting it, tweaking it. And then what happens, even when they get it right, is that because it's synthetic, it tells the thyroid, you don't need to produce hormone anymore. There's hormone here. You don't need to produce it anymore. Remember what I said in the beginning? The glands start to shrink. This is one of the reasons. Not only because of our poor diet and lifestyle choices, but the synthetics we put in our body is causing our glandular system to literally shrink. So what happens is a lot of people who are on Synthroid, for example, they have to keep increasing the dose after a few years, increasing it. As the thyroid gets weaker, the medication goes up and up and up. What's cool about it is we have often seen people start working on their thyroid naturally. And let me see, I think I talk about this. Oh, under how to heal it. So I'm probably jumping ahead, but when they start healing it, they start getting symptoms of an overactive thyroid, which means what? it's working. They need to decrease their synthetic thyroid supplement because their thyroid is starting to function, and now they're having symptoms of an overactive thyroid, so they have to keep decreasing the medication. And eventually they can come off it, which is really awesome. Roman numeral 6. So how to heal it. It's always food, always food, always food. That's going to be a common theme. People want a pill. Yeah, there's pills that are great and that work for things, but it always comes down to the food choices you make. Processed sugar is the number one thing that will destroy your glandular system. The number one thing that will atrophy and shrink your entire glandular system. Number one thing that will cause infections in your body. Number one cause that will absolutely kill your sexual function. Sugar. What's the worst form of sugar? Alcohol. So that's all alcohol is straight sugar, right? So processed sugar, really big. The other one really affecting the thyroid gland is the gluten-containing grains. This is often implicated in Hashimoto's. So a lot of people with Hashimoto's, they stop doing gluten, and the autoimmune reaction stops. The other one is dairy, and I mentioned soy and I mentioned peanuts. These are some common allergenic foods that can affect the thyroid. And again, not all of these are going to affect everyone. I'm just giving you examples of different foods that do affect different people related to thyroid health. Genetically modified foods. This is a big subject. I wish we could do an hour class on genetically modified foods. We'll talk about it when we start on the food classes, but let me just say this. If you guys know what genetically modified foods are designed to do, one of the things they're designed to do is to not reproduce. So the reason Monsanto has created and controlled these different seeds is so that you buy it from them, you grow the plant for a year, it does not reproduce, so you have to buy it from them again the next year. They're modified, genetically modified to be infertile. What's going to happen if you eat those foods? Yeah, exactly. This is why one of the 1,000 reasons that altering God's design is so detrimental and so damaging. It is making people infertile. You want to learn what foods are genetically modified, and you want to avoid them at all cost. So I just wanted to make that point. We'll talk more about it when we get into the food classes in the future. And the reason that pesticides work, the reason these genetically modified foods keep bugs away is because it actually destroys the endocrine system of the bugs. It causes them basically to self-implode by totally altering their hormonal system. It does the same thing to us. It's a big deal. People in Europe have made it illegal. They march in the streets by the tens of thousands to remove genetically modified foods. Sorry, I said I was going to stop talking about it, but I can't. So, moving on. Understand that caffeine will overstimulate the glandular system. I'm going to really talk about this more in the adrenal gland section, because it's caffeine is a false stimulant. I know you guys are all going to be mad at me again because I'm going to talk about coffee, but come on. So we'll talk more about it when we talk about adrenals. I want to talk about electricity. This is a really important topic, and I think it's a little bit confusing because when we start talking about electricity, when we start talking about energy, we start talking about, we want to use the term energy medicine, all of a sudden it's weird. And I always thought it was weird. And I think it's one of the main reasons a lot of Christians especially stay away from natural health, because energy is weird. It's not. Energy was created by God. You're an energetic being. You're an electrical being. That's the way God designed you. It's very important for us to understand that. Now, there might be other practitioners operating in things that we would not be comfortable with, and I understand that. But I want you to know that energy is real. We don't think energy is weird when we're talking about plugging in our lamp and ways to save our energy costs at home. When we start talking about the body being energetic, oh, believe me, the body's energetic. That's all it is. It's a giant ocean of electrical activity. That's what makes everything function. The little sparks that are happening inside the body is electricity. It's how your brain functions. We do EKGs and EEGs on the heart. What is that? It's a measuring of electrical stimuli in the body because we're electrical beings. But every single organ and gland in the body is very electrical, and the most electrical organ or gland in the entire body is the thyroid gland. So what's happening? We're completely disconnected from our largest energy source. What's the largest? Well, let me say, what are the two largest energy sources in the universe that we know of? The sun and our own earth that's right at our feet that we never see and that we never touch anymore. Isn't it sad? I wish I was standing barefoot on the ground right now. I know y'all think I'm weird. That's okay. They have found that reconnecting with the earth is getting people off of thyroid medication. Okay, that's not weird energy medicine. That's connecting to the earth that God created with our bodies that he created, the way he designed it. And we need to understand that our disconnect to the earth is causing major, major, major imbalances. We used to eat, sleep, walk, live on the ground. We now have rubber shoes, rubber tires. We go camping, and we still are lucky if we even touch the ground. Okay, let's go back to the days where we used to play in the dirt. So I love playing in the dirt. Does anybody here have a garden? Don't you love playing in the dirt? There's an old Chinese proverb that says you haven't learned the key to longevity until you plant a garden. Getting reconnected with the earth is really important. And I just felt, for whatever reason, that I need to make that point, that it's not weird. It's okay. I like to give the example of, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this, where you go to, we're landlocked here. It's unfortunate. My fiance's from Hawaii, and she's really bummed out that there's no ocean around. But if you go to the ocean, you go to a beach, and you lay on the beach with your body touching, like without a towel, like just laying on the beach or even on the ground somewhere. Have you ever fallen into that deep, deep drool coming out of the side of your mouth, sleep, and when you wake up, you're so severely disoriented, it takes you like 2 minutes to figure out where you are and who you are? Who's experienced that? Yeah, why do you feel that way? Because you're connected to the largest source of energy we have on the planet, which is the earth itself that God designed. We need to reconnect to it. What's cool about it is one of the biggest areas of research in natural health right now is using technology to bring this into our house. And it's called grounding. So there's earthing mats, there's earthing pads, there's even earthing shoes that people can buy. And all it is a mat woven with metal fibers, and it plugs into, not electricity, it plugs into the ground wire of your home, which is connected to what? The ground, to the earth. And so you can actually sleep on these things. And people don't believe it until they experience it. I could tell you so many cool stories. But people sleep on these mats, and wow, they have that deep sleep that they've been missing. They wake up with less pain and inflammation. They're doing studies showing that it normalizes cortisol levels while you sleep. It's helping with insomnia. It's helping people with chronic pain. I had a lady, Judy. She loves it when I tell the story of her cat because she loves her cat. But her cat's name's Chinny, and Chinny was getting older, and Chinny stopped licking himself. And if you know anything about cats, when a cat stops grooming itself, that's a really bad sign. The cat stopped grooming itself, and it stopped purring. And she said, well, what can I do for my cat? And I said, and we weren't even really, I didn't even really give her anything for a cat, but I said, why don't you try this grounding mat for you so you can sleep better? She's one of those people that always takes care of everybody else before taking care of herself. So I said, get one of these for you. Let's get you sleeping better and feeling better. She bought the mat, and she goes, I can't get Chinny off the mat. And I hear that all the time from people buy these mats. They can't get the animals off it because animals, what? They're instinctual. They want to be on the earth. They go lay in the sun. They're smart. So Chinny, after being on this mat for a couple weeks, started grooming itself again. Chinny started purring again. I just love telling that story of good old Chinny. So there you go, Judy. Because the thyroid is such an electrical organ, it can really be damaged by cell phones, laptops, electromagnetic frequencies. A lot of us have heard about this, and again, it's not something we can see or measure, so we don't really know how much it's affected us. I encourage you to research it and look at the studies. Very damaging. Women carrying cell phones on their body when they're pregnant. Cell phones being put in the little carrying case right by their babies' heads with the strollers. And the satellite is pinging that cell phone every minute. This stuff is real. We can't see it, but it's real. God, we can't see him, but he's real. So these things, just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're not real. I gave a website here because there's a lot of studies that they've done, really good studies, earthinginstitute.net. And I gave the link there. And I encourage you guys just to check out the research that's being done on this body of research being reconnecting us back to the earth. It's really important. Paragraph C, detoxification. So because the thyroid is prone to so many contaminants, that detoxing it is really important. There's a lot of things you can do that with. MSM, fulvic acid, zeolites, iodine. I just mentioned some of them. Chlorella is really good for that. Paragraph D, iodine and selenium. These are the two most important minerals for the thyroid gland. I love how God has given us everything we need, and a lot of times we just don't know it. Like iodine, for example. Iodine is where? People know iodine is in sea vegetables. It's in kelp. You know the highest herbal source of iodine is falling off of trees all around us? Black walnuts. Those black walnut trees. When you touch them, it stains your hand black. It's iodine. We have the richest source of iodine available to us. I just think that's pretty cool. Paragraph E, selenium from Brazil nuts and other foods. Coconut. Coconut is amazing because it's a saturated fat. Don't be scared of saturated fat. Saturated fat's a hormone precursor. You need it to produce healthy hormones. It's the best fat for the thyroid gland. Why? Because it helps the body to produce healthy hormones. That's why breast milk is mostly saturated fat, to help the baby grow, develop, and produce hormones. So coconut oil, you can actually rub it right where your thyroid gland is, and also consume it, cook with it, put it on your skin. It'll stimulate hormone production just by rubbing it on your body. Herbs. I mentioned black walnut. Any of your sea vegetables, kelp especially, because of the high iodine content, very bioavailable. And I put a little note here that herbs can be strong. They're very medicinal. Check with your doctor. Your doctor might not know a lot about the herbs, but it's good to look them up and research them because a lot of herbs can have a very, very strong medicinal effect. The ones here mentioned, though, are quite common, quite safe herbs. So I just wanted to make that point. And then exercise and sunshine. One of the best things for the entire glandular system is sun. Good old sun that we're scared of and causes cancer. No, it doesn't. We should not be scared of the sun. And I put sunglasses block the most important energy to your overall health. Don't not wear sunglasses and get in a car accident and say, hey, that guy told me not to wear sunglasses. But I don't wear sunglasses when I learned this because I found out that the sun entering your eyes actually stimulates the pineal and the pituitary gland to produce hormones. Why? Because the sun is life, it's energy. Nothing grows without the sun. So it's very important to our bodies as well. So I encourage you to get your sunshine in a healthy way, a non-burning, damaging to the skin way. Sun, very good for you. Let's go on to talk about the adrenal glands. Wow, time is flying. The adrenal glands are walnut-sized glands sit on top of your kidneys. They're your battery pack. They manage stress, fight or flight response, and they produce more hormones than any other gland in your entire body. They balance and manage salt and potassium levels, help with blood pressure and blood sugar. So low blood pressure, low blood sugar, very strongly linked to poor adrenal function. And they provide you energy when you need it. Energy from where? Hormones, adrenals, adrenaline. Very, very critically important hormone. Cortisol. We hear the negatives of cortisol because we produce too much of it, because we're always stressed out just driving to work or whatever we're doing. We're constantly in a state of stress and panic. So we're producing too much cortisol all the time. But cortisol is actually needed for digestion, to manage the stress response, and it's important for brain function. But an overproduction of cortisol is very dangerous and linked to weight gain. A lot of people know that. Excess cortisol can kind of cause this little thing around the middle going on with some people, and that's from being stressed out all the time and the adrenals going haywire. Adrenaline is mainly produced from water and salt. These are two of the most important things for the adrenal glands. If you ever had a job interview or been in a really stressful situation and got cotton mouth really bad, it's because your body is sucking up water and salt out of your body to produce adrenaline. That's where cotton mouth comes from. So adrenaline is a very important hormone needed in emergency situations, that whole fight or flight. We need to get out of fight or flight all the time. It's a dangerous place to be in. We also need to heal and relax sometimes. It's hard for us to do that in our American lifestyle. So this is why athletes and people working outdoors, people sweating profusely, need to really replenish their electrolyte minerals. And you will not find an athlete without healthy adrenal glands, because they really need those to stop and start and to get that burst of speed and energy when they need it. Paragraph C, I list not all, few of the most important hormones that the adrenals produce that you're probably familiar with, but it produces 40 other ones as well that we know of. There's probably 5,000. There's so little that we know when it comes to the human body. God is so amazing, but these are some of the ones we know of. Roman numeral 8, symptoms and causes of adrenal fatigue. Symptoms, exhaustion. People flat out, worn out, tired, beat down, exhausted from being stressed out all the time. Weak muscles, mid to lower back pain, uncontrollable cravings for sugar and salt. Uncontrollable cravings for salt because the adrenal glands need salt and they use a lot of salt. Uncontrollable cravings for sugar because your adrenals are so wiped out that you're not producing hormones properly and your body's relying on sugar as a fuel source, as a false stimulant. And those are the two extremes. Those are the two things Americans, or I shouldn't always say Americans, I mean just because I'm in America, I guess, but mainly industrialized cultures deal with is the yo-yo between salt and sugar, and those are the two extremes. There's no balance. We always seem to go for, why do they serve popcorn and soda at a movie theater? It's that extreme salty sweet taste that we're always craving. It's because of these major imbalances in our endocrine system, in our glandular system. Irregular heartbeat, poor digestion, concentration, nervousness, irritability, lack of mental focus, depression. Depression strongly linked to adrenal function. Mental focus strongly linked to adrenal function. I can't stress that enough, how mental focus is linked to adrenal function. I'm going to talk about that real quick here in detail. The other thing that's happening is, I didn't even list it here, I don't think, but the adrenal glands, I did. Adrenal glands produce something called corticosteroids. Steroids. What do steroids do? Why do we take steroids? Why do doctors give us steroids? What type of people are given steroids? Asthma inhalers, autoimmune conditions. People have breakouts in their skin. They're giving steroids, hoping it'll make it disappear. The body's supposed to produce that naturally. So people take an asthma inhaler, same thing when I talk about taking a synthetic pharmaceutical hormone, you're putting way more in than the body needs. So of course it's going to have an immediate action. It works. It does work, but it's going to cause major imbalances. If anybody's taken lots of steroids, like asthma inhalers, and kind of had to overdo a lot of the cortisone and some of these different types of shots, they know how badly it throws their body out of whack. One of the things that happens is you get ravenously hungry. So, paragraph B, people with weak adrenals can't cope with stress and may have terrible anxiety. prone to depression, panic attacks, nervousness, and compulsiveness. So here's where I really want to talk about the adrenals and how it affects depression, panic attacks, nervousness, compulsiveness, also lack of mental focus that I mentioned earlier. Not just adults, but real quick, I want to touch on children. ADD and ADHD. This really pains me. There was a good message on Sunday about the children, if you were at service, about how we need to be caring for our children, how we need to raise up our children, how we need to be taking care of our children, investing in our children. They're our future. We don't know how many generations we are away from the end times, but God is definitely raising people up, and it's going to start with our children. Children are being diagnosed with psychosomatic disorders, not from a Ritalin deficiency. It's from a hormone imbalance. And guess what? We're causing it. We're causing it with our poor lifestyle choices, our processed foods, the chemicals in our food supply, feeding your kids processed sugar as a treat, as a way to reward children. We have to start investing in our children and in health as well as other areas. This is a big deal. I have children all the time, parents come to me all the time, children with symptoms of ADD, ADHD. First of all, it's blown way out of proportion. A lot of it is just kids being a kid. Okay, but also a lot of it is because of our poor choices when it's come to lifestyle and the food choices. And I give children mainly three things. A specific blend of essential fatty acids. What are fatty acids? Hormone precursors to help you produce hormones, right? The magnesium oil calms and relaxes. It's what gets burned out of the adrenal glands. And I have a product that I give people called Focus H. Now, here's what's really fascinating. You think by taking a product called Focus, it'd be something for brain function, some brain herbs or something like that. It's an adrenal formula. It does miracles on kids. All of a sudden, they're functioning better. They're concentrating better. They're focusing better. It was a deficiency. It was a nutritional deficiency caused by poor diet and stress even. So many kids are under stress today because of what's going on in the home or just the environment. So it's just really hard when you talk about children. You see what's happening to our children, given these drugs, giving Ritalin, being diagnosed like there's some kind of, like they have psychotic disorders. Children are literally being diagnosed psychotic. And children are what? They're innocent victims. They're only the products of our environment. So I just really felt like I needed to make that point, and we need to start sowing into our children in the area of health as well. Otherwise, we're not going to have the future leaders that we need. So on that note, paragraph C, the main enemies of the adrenal glands are sugar, caffeine, and stress. I mean, this is the American lifestyle, and there's no doubt that we have an epidemic of complete adrenal fatigue, failure, and exhaustion. What happens is the sugar and the caffeine are false stimulants. And I'm going to explain what a false stimulant is. The hormones are natural stimulants. The body produces adrenaline when we need an adrenaline rush. That's what's supposed to happen. When we need some extra sugar in the bloodstream because we're exercising or we're performing or we're doing something, the adrenals should help with that. The liver helps with that. What's happening is our endocrine system's so wiped out and we're so go, that we need false stimulants just to keep going. I equate it to a horse. You can keep whipping a horse, and if you know a horse, the horses will go to the end. You just keep whipping that horse, and he'll keep going. Eventually, he's going to collapse because he just physically can't go anymore. But he'll go. He'll keep going until he collapses. The body's the same way. You keep feeding it these false stimulants, it'll keep going until it collapses. And then people go, I don't know what happened. Just one day, I woke up and I'm completely exhausted. I'm completely tanked out. I have nothing left in the tank. It didn't just happen in one day. It's from years of eating sugar and caffeine. The reason it's a false stimulant is what happens is excess sugar in the bloodstream, excess caffeine in the bloodstream actually stimulates, because it's toxic to the bloodstream, because it's too much, it stimulates a steroid reaction. The body has to produce corticosteroids to stop the toxicity issue, to stop the inflammatory issue that's happening, especially when it comes to sugar. It's a steroid kick you're feeling. It has nothing to do with energy. It's a steroid kick. So we keep kicking steroids out of our adrenals, eventually they're going to exhaust. And that's what's happening. So what's the point here? The point is God designed a body that's supposed to have plenty of energy all the time. To have energy when you need it. How many cultures around the world had coffee beans at their disposal 24 hours a day? Very, very few. So I'm not discouraging you from getting off coffee completely. What I'm highly recommending is choosing a quality coffee and cutting your intake back to a half a cup or a cup a day, because more than that is going to overstimulate this glandular system. I could tell, there's stories, talk to IHOPers. There's IHOPers that have come to see me. I wish I could share some of the stories. I'm sure I could, they wouldn't mind, but I'm not going to. But so many IHOPers have come to me, and they've just been burnt out. They've been living on coffee just because of whatever reasons. They were going to IHOP U, they're on the night watch, there's reasons. I'm not saying it's terribly bad, but it's wiped them out, it's burnt them out. They get off the caffeine, they get off the processed sugar, they put things in their body that feeds their glandular system. You would not believe how quickly, you guys don't believe it. It's hard for you to believe that within a month, you can feel like a brand new person and be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to have coffee to live. But people don't believe it because they're so used to it and they're so used to that stimulant that they don't think they could possibly survive without their coffee. Beloved, you can. You really can. Without your Red Bull, without your coffee, without your 5-hour energy. That's not as bad though. So how to heal weakened adrenal glands. Roman numeral 9, avoid the stimulants, the false stimulants. They burn out the adrenals. You can offset that negative effect from the caffeine with a little bit of salt, some maca, some shilajit. Paragraph B, avoid the white sugar. And I really want to talk real quick on salt. The adrenal glands run on water and salt. So if you know you have an adrenal problem, a lot of times people will crave salt. It's okay to crave salt. You probably need salt. We oversalt things a lot of times in America. That's bad. So if you're yo-yoing back and forth between sugar and salt, you know there's a problem. But if you're just craving salt because you feel like it kind of gives you an energy boost or a kick, it might be because your adrenals are using it because of the stress. I just encourage you not to overdo it, but to do the best quality salt, not table salt. If you have table salt at home, please throw it away. Get a good sea salt or the Himalayan rock salt. And it is very important for the adrenals. I love talking about salt because people are so scared of salt, but salt was the one thing when an army was marching across the desert that they would never be without because they knew they couldn't survive without it. That's where the word salary came from, because people used to be paid in salt. Salt's very, very important, and the adrenals need it. So I give just a brief overview of just some good foods for the adrenals. If you have wiped out adrenals, do really good on healthy proteins, lean, quality meats, healthy fats, because these are sustainable energy sources that you can use over a period of time throughout the day, and not the false stimulation that causes this, the roller coaster, which many of you have experienced if you've done Red Bull or ate a Snickers bar or whatever, the yo-yo effect. This will stop the yo-yo effect and give the adrenals a chance to heal. Lying down, shutting off the adrenals. You all would think I'm crazy if I told you to sleep for 4 straight days. However, there's a lady named Donna Gates, Body Ecology Program, which I'm a huge fan of. She's seen people who have actually been able to do this, so tired, so run down, so exhausted, literally turned off the light and stayed in their bedroom for 3-4 straight days, and it's like they came back to life again. They really were that wiped out that they needed 3 days of sleep, if you can imagine. But resting in general, very important for the adrenals. That's what shuts off the adrenal glands, is being a relaxed, lying down state. Getting grounded. I mentioned that a lot when I talked about the thyroid. Feeding the adrenals. So some of the things the adrenals need, vitamin C. I mentioned a bunch of herbs there. You can kind of look over those on your own. But the main things I give to people when their adrenals are wiped out, number one, magnesium. We burn it as a fuel. We burn it when we're stressed out. It burns at like 5,100 degrees temperature or something when you burn magnesium. It's crazy. So the body uses it for fuel, and it gets burnt out when we're stressed out. So magnesium, vitamin C. The adrenal glands use more vitamin C than any other gland in the entire body. So vitamin C, very important. Those are two of the main things you want to give somebody with adrenal wipeout. And getting off the false stimulants, you'll see huge changes in a month. Add in a couple Chinese tonic herbs like the licorice root or astragalus or ashwagandha or ginseng. They're phenomenal. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to hormones and women's health real quick. Paragraph A, because we have created a toxic environment, a dangerous food supply, women are unjustly suffering from hormone-related issues. This is really sad because a lot of women, even at a young age, just are questioning who they are. They're questioning their body. They're going through puberty before everyone else. They're having a cycle way early. They're developing breasts way young. And they don't understand. They don't get it. And it's because of the food supply. It's because of these synthetic estrogens. It's because of the hormones in the meat. And it's causing women to really question even who they are and question their own bodies from a very young age. And even adults. This is a very tricky situation. John McDougall, there's a couple quotes there, but I want to read his quote. He said, by adolescence, a great many young girls have come to believe their bodies are the problem. It's creating a complex in girls about their bodies from a young age. Premature development, acne, irregular periods, so confusing. So this is something that we can help correct by making better choices today. Paragraph C, estrogen dominance is the main cause of hormone imbalance in modern society. The increase in estrogen causing many imbalances, poor diet, lack of exercise, and the xenoestrogens. Those are what's causing it. And I'm going to talk real quick about menopause. Menopause is inevitable. Symptoms of menopause are not. It's a hormone imbalance. Real quick, the way it works is the body produces progesterone, which antagonizes estrogen, in other words, keeps it in balance. Progesterone, as in progestation, as means it's only produced when you may have a child. So when you go through the change, what happens? You're not going to have a child anymore, so you stop producing progesterone in those same amounts as you would when you might have a child. So because of all the synthetic estrogens we've done over time, all of a sudden that estrogen dominance rears its ugly head because there's no progesterone to balance it. And it's from years of birth control, the hormones in our food supply, and it really wasn't overly noticeable until we stopped producing the progesterone. And then all of a sudden you get the night sweats and the hot flashes and all those symptoms that go along with that. So Roman numeral 11, hormone replacement therapies. God designed the body that should function well. We've created an environment which greatly disrupts the ability of our glandular system to function optimally. Hormone replacement therapy has been around for a long, 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 long time. Most women know the dangers now of synthetics. Progestin is one of the synthetics that are used in a lot of these types of hormone replacement therapy. And I just want to make the note that birth control is a form of synthetic hormones. It prevents ovulation. It prevents pregnancy. It does it by putting synthetic hormones in the body. Now, this is a kind of a tricky situation because if you're taking birth control because you really, really don't want to have a child, that's something you need to pray about and see if there's other alternatives for you. But if you're taking birth control because your doctor said it would balance your hormones or because you want to get rid of acne, that is absolute madness. And it's still happening today. That's not the cure for acne, putting synthetic hormones in your body that increases the risk of cancer and osteoporosis, high blood pressure, vaginal bleeding, rashes, weight gain, breast cancer, hair loss, and heart attacks. These synthetic hormones are very dangerous long term. Let's go to Roman paragraph C. Back to menopause. It's not a disease. Dr. McCullough, a lot of you guys might know him. He's got a pretty popular newsletter that he sends out. But he called menopause a fake disease with a phony cure. I mean, it's not a disease. It's the life change. The symptoms we're experiencing is because of an imbalance. But the cure isn't, or the fix isn't synthetic hormones. It's balancing those estrogen levels back into place. And I'm going to give you some ideas to do that. The problem, real quick, with synthetic hormones, paragraph D, it's very hard to find the right balance. Because again, these hormones are synthetic. It's weird to the body. God didn't create it. So first of all, it has to figure out what the heck it is. It's got to figure out how to use it, and then it's got to figure out what to do with the extra. So yes, it has an immediate effect, but there's always negative side effects to it and always long-term repercussions. And again, the body becomes dependent on the hormone. And even when you're taking a quote-unquote natural supplement like melatonin, a lot of people take melatonin for sleep. There are natural sources of melatonin, but even stuff in the health food store is synthetic, and it will cause your body to be reliant on it, and you'll stop producing melatonin. You want to know how you produce melatonin? You get sunshine in through your eyeballs, you stimulate your pituitary gland, and you go to sleep when you're supposed to go to sleep a couple hours after dark, and you have the room be pitch black. That's melatonin. We just have a hard time doing that these days. And especially in the IHOP community. You're like, yeah, I'm on night watch. I know, it's hard. And number 3, it's not natural. The goal, as always, and I will say it 1,000 times, that God created a body that's self-healing. If you get the right nutrition in the body and remove the things that are stressing the body, it will heal itself. We see it over and over and over again. Roman numeral 12, natural hormone balancing for women. The keys to remove the stressors: diet, again, always food, poor diet, processed foods, processed dairy, soy products, the bad fats, those totally block the ability of your body to produce healthy hormones. Xenoestrogens. Natural progesterone creams have really helped a lot of women. Vitex is an herb called chase tree berry that helps you to naturally produce progesterone in the body. I stress again coconut oil in paragraph C. Paragraph D, cruciferous vegetables. This is kind of going to get into just a few of the things that will remove the synthetic estrogens from the body. There's a nutrient in cruciferous vegetables called endocarbonol 3. And you can take it as a supplement, or you can just do cruciferous vegetables, and it will actually remove the synthetic estrogens from the body. Oats, or eating oatmeal, remove synthetic estrogens from the body. Lemons and lime peels, if you've ever done like a zest off a lemon or a lime peel, remove synthetic estrogens from the body. How cool is that? If you look at a lot of Chinese medicine formulas, for example, you'll see lemon or lime peel in almost every single formula because they're really big on balancing hormones. It's just interesting. Paragraph E, there's herbs called secretagogues that help the glands to properly secrete hormones. I gave just a couple of them. Maca, goji berries. Goji berries is called the happy berry. That's one of the nicknames of it. And noni. These are all herbs that are known as secretagogues. Deer antler is fantastic for that as well. And I give you a quick recipe here for a female hormone balancing smoothie. So you can have some fun with that. But just a couple of notes on that. One is royal jelly. Royal jelly is awesome. It's what they feed the queen bee. What's cool about royal jelly is if the queen bee dies, they can pick any bee in the colony. They feed it royal jelly, and guess what? Turns into a queen. How cool is that? How powerful of a food is that? Now, if you had to lay thousands of eggs a day, you'd have good hormones. So, yeah, I know, that's funny, but they have found that royal jelly is amazing for balancing hormones in the endocrine system. It was the key, according to Cleopatra, it was the key to longevity, bee products, doing bee pollen, royal jelly. These are types of things that a lot of people have consumed throughout history for longevity and hormone balancing. I want to talk real quick about chlorella and spirulina because they're blood builders, very important for women because you're menstruating, you're losing blood. So it's really important to build your blood supply, And chlorella and spirulina are the highest sources of chlorophyll on the planet, highest source of beta-carotene, very high in iron. It'll build your blood and replenish that blood that you're losing through your cycle. So that's why it's in the formula. And because of the cacao in it, cacao, which is chocolate and increases your mood and makes you feel fantastic, because of the cacao and the blueberries and everything that comes in it, don't worry, you won't taste the green spirulina or the chlorella. So that's why we kind of mixed it in there. And then there's just some other herbs in there. Camu, highest known source of vitamin C in the world, really helps you shed the lining properly because you'll have strong tissues if you have good vitamin C content in your body. So there's a reason each thing is in there. Just some final thoughts because we're about out of time. Final thoughts on hormones, paragraph A. I mentioned it earlier, but I want to reemphasize. The number one thing that'll kill your sex drive is sugar, alcohol being the worst. Paragraph B, so I don't want to leave the men out. For testosterone production, there's a couple of herbs that are really well tested, well studied to increasing testosterone in men. One's called tribulus and one called Tongkat Ali. Tongkat. And I will warn you, Tongkat Ali does not taste good at all. But it's actually been shown in studies to boost testosterone 3 to 4 times. Very good for men who want to do that. Paragraph C. Now, this is interesting. This is a link that I learned first from one of the chiropractors that I trained with, Ulan Nutritional Systems, Dr. Ulan. His story is really fascinating, but just to give it to you real quick, this is really neat. This was a guy who was a chiropractor, and he was a chiropractor back in the 60s when people were getting healed from chiropractic. And what he found is people stopped being healed from chiropractic, and he couldn't figure out why. And what happened was, used to be back in the day, somebody'd go to a chiropractor and they'd do a snap, pop, adjust, align the spine, and everything would heal. Like that. Literally everybody. And then they'd tell 1,000 friends, and they'd all come in and everybody would be healed. It stopped working. The reason it stopped working is because the nutrition in America is so poor, you can't hold your adjustment. So people were no longer getting well through chiropractic. So he started focusing on nutrition first, chiropractic second, and people started healing again. So again, why nutrition is so critically important. But what he found, one of the links he found, and I've seen it in my business, is that neck pain, back pain, the chronic stuff, the chronic neck pain, back pain, up and down the spine pain that wasn't caused from a trauma or some kind of a major injury is often linked to a weak glandular system. The number one in women is thyroid, and in men, oftentimes it's prostate. And you heal those glands, and suddenly that pain goes away. So that's a really important note right there. Paragraph D, for a healthy prostate, men, alcohol, processed sugar. That is wiping you out, and dairy products. The processed dairy. Did I put processed dairy? Yes, processed dairy products. So pumpkin oil, amazing anti-inflammatory, very high in magnesium, very high in zinc. You can do the pumpkin oil. You can eat pumpkin seeds. And then there's some herbs there that help with that. And I gave a quick note on how to reduce xenoestrogens. Use glass containers, eliminate processed foods, organic fruits and veggies. I cannot believe I did not put eliminating hormones from meat and dairy. That should be number 1. I skipped that one, so write that in. Switch over to natural household cleaners, cosmetics, and toiletries. Women, if you put it on your skin, it's going into your bloodstream. So you really need to switch to some of the natural stuff. And finally, for female ovary health, avocados are wonderful. If you cut an avocado in half, what does it look like? Looks like an ovary. And one final note that's really cool is ovarian cysts and abnormal lumps on the breast. We've often seen just rubbing iodine on the area where the ovarian cysts are or on a lump on the breast, the lump or the cyst will disappear, sometimes in days. It's the most amazing thing. So, and then systemic enzymes, and I've talked about those in classes in the past. Enzymes are like Pac-Man. They go through the body, and they'll gobble up a lot of those cysts and excess tissue hanging out in the body. So, amen. That's it. I want to mention next week, I really encourage you guys to come because I have had feedback from a couple of people saying, I've been to all your classes, and I really feel like the only thing I can eat is vegetables. So next week, we really want to address all the amazing foods that God has given us and really detail the problem with our food supply
Somebody mentioned, again, I'm going to go back to the question that the young lady asked about a land flowing with milk and honey and the wheats in the field that's biblical, and how the way it used to be differs from the way it is today, and healthier choices that you can make. So I really want to get into detail all of that, because a lot of you have experienced, and I have experienced, and I see it so many times, that the way you heal the body is through foods that God designed, period, more so than any pill or any other thing you do. So I really encourage you guys to come next week when we start talking about the food classes, and bring some friends. We really want to, get this information out there. So that's it, and I will take a few questions. It's already almost 8:30, so.
Vaughn, I'm just curious about the sunglasses. I wear sunglasses because I'm sensitive and it hurts my eyes. Is that maybe because I've worn sunglasses and they're not as strong, or what do you?
I honestly don't know if I can answer that question.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure why their eyes get really sensitive to the sun. So can you do it for a few minutes and then put your sunglasses on, or is it immediate? Maybe you can build up. That's just a suggestion. But I honestly don't have a good answer for why some people, because that's true, a lot of people do have really sensitive eyes to the sun, but I don't have a good answer for that.
All right. One thing I've always heard, and I think you addressed this just a little bit, but laying in the sun does the cancer, gives you skin cancer, and also is bad for your eyes. Can you just make that clear again?
Yeah, absolutely. They actually did a study on, I want to say melatonin. What's the skin cancer? Melanoma. Thank you. They did a study on melanoma, and they found that the rates of melanoma were higher among indoor workers than outdoor workers. The sun, and if you want some good information on this, go to Dr. Mercola's website. He's big on the sun and vitamin D. He will show you study after study after study after study that shows the sun prevents all types of cancer. The problem is when we get too much sun and we burn our skin, it's never good to damage our bodies, right? So common sense says if you burn your skin over and over and over and over again, it's going to kill the skin cells and maybe develop into something negative. The goal is to get as much sun as possible without burning yourself. If you look at a lot of Asian cultures, you'll find that they don't wear sunscreens. They wear long-brimmed hats. They wear really light, long clothing to minimize their sun exposure, but they're not going to put on sunscreen. So you want to get as much sun as possible without burning yourself, because it's very, very healthy, very preventative for cancer. And what's actually causing skin cancer, as crazy as this sounds, is the sunscreens. Because there's so many chemicals in there that are synthetic. You put this might freak some of you out. You put synthetic chemicals on your skin, what happens? The sun burns those into your skin. That's what causes skin cancer. So you might want to research that for yourself.
Just talking about all the environmental toxins and all that going on, and all the food we eat, and just switching our diet into proper diet. Could you just address the biofilms that have been created from different resources around the cells, just in how to break those off? But because we could throw so much at our bodies,
Yeah.
but if good stuff, but our cells aren't being penetrated. So I'm just wondering if that's...
There's not a cookie cutter answer to that, because the reason that's happening is because of, like you said, the environmental factors and all the negatives coming in through our food and everything like that. So the way to reverse it is just by good diet and getting the cells healthy by feeding it the right nutrition, getting it the good fats that make the cell membranes permeable so it can properly allow the right nutrients in and get rid of the toxins. But one of the best things for that is the systemic enzymes. The systemic enzymes go in there and actually eat off that shell or that biofilm that's created around a lot of the cells causing problems.
I use an electric blanket in the winter. Is that a good idea or a bad?
I think electric blankets are just fine and dandy.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with an electric blanket. Let's do like 3 more.
I'm wondering how much coconut oil is good or bad. I mean, obviously you can overdo anything.
Yeah, you can. That's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer. I would say, it's interesting. I've actually had people do 3-4 tablespoons a day, and they've seen it help with weight loss because it increases their metabolism and gives them sustainable fuel and energy, and it cuts their cravings for sugars and sweets. So you can actually do up to 3-4 tablespoons a day. But I'd say a tablespoon a day is probably a decent amount, a half a tablespoon to a tablespoon a day. But you should be getting good fats from other sources. A good blend is to do coconut oil with a good omega-3. It's like a good fish oil and a good coconut is a really powerful combination for hormones and energy and anti-inflammatory. So that would be a good blend. You don't want to just rely on necessarily one source like coconut. You want to have a blend of other fats.
Could you talk about the deer antler? Is it ground and then you ingest it?
Yeah, deer antler's really interesting. Deer antler is actually the velvety tips of the deer antler that regenerates and regrows new every single year. And they found that those regenerative properties actually have the same effect on our own body. So it can actually help re-stimulate and regrow the nervous system. It has IGF growth factors in it. It can actually help you grow new organs because it stimulates healthy cell regrowth. So did I answer your question? How does it work? Yeah, it's the velvety tips of the deer antler. And what they do is they extract it through it would be like a tincture form where they actually extract the nutrients from the antler of the deer. And what's cool about deer antler is no deer were harmed in the making of this product. It's something that they naturally reproduce. And a lot of people, that's a concern. So, it's really cool. God gave a few select creatures on this planet the ability to regrow. Like a lizard can grow a new tail sometimes, or a starfish can grow a new limb, and the deer antler can regrow its new. So yeah, we can actually benefit from those nutrients. It's very powerful. Like a lot of the supplements come from New Zealand, and people in New Zealand are big on it. It's the main anti-aging thing. A lot of people in Asia, it's the number 2 herb used in Chinese medicine. Number 1 is ginseng. Number 2 is deer antler, just because of the longevity, restorative properties. They know that it's about ginseng and deer antler are 2 of the best things you can put in your body for longevity, just to have healthy cells and everything when it comes to living a long, healthy life. Where we at?
Can you talk about PCOS specifically and just what causes it and how to help with that?
The main thing with PCOS, and if you don't know what PCOS is, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. The main thing is diet. And it's an imbalance of sugar and carbohydrate consumption, mainly. So that's the first thing you have to fix, is the processed sugars, the excess carbs, the white simple sugars. The main things that help with that is adjusting the diet. The iodine is really, really good for that. Dairy would be the other thing you'd want to be careful with, the processed dairy. So those are the foods, the processed sugar and the dairy. The iodine is very good for that. And those would probably be the main things. Let's do one more.
Two quick questions. One is your take on raw sugar. That's like a big craze, raw sugar. And then second, you listed, like the handout's got a lot of different kind of herbs and plants. And my question is, where can we go if we garden? Where can we go to get the seeds for those? Or is there a seed book you recommend, place that we can get seeds from?
I wish I had one. Maybe somebody else knows an answer to that. I don't, as far as the seeds go. I know you can get a lot of those things online, and a lot of basic herbs you can get it right at the store. I mean, you can get holy basil and rosemary and thyme and a lot of those spices, but I don't really know one good source. The other question was, what was the other question? Raw sugar, okay. So going back to when I talked about sugar in the class on the pancreas and diabetes, how did God make sugar? Sugar cane, which is a stick, fruit, and honey. Raw sugar, if it's in a bag, is still processed sugar. It's still super, super concentrated, and it's still 1,000 times more than your body was ever meant to handle at one time. It's still sugar. One of the problems with sugar is we want to still eat our sugar, but think we're being healthy by switching to raw. That's a very dangerous choice. If you want to get sugar, chew on a sugar cane stick. No, I'm just kidding. But really, we want to use what God gave us. Fruit and honey and raw maple syrup and, there's other things out there. And if you want to use a little bit of raw, pure cane sugar and you're throwing a little bit in your coffee here and there, a little bit in a shaker smoothie, that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But what happened is people use that as a justification to feed their sugar addiction. They go, well, I used to do processed sugar, and I used to eat cupcakes and candy and donuts all the time, and now I use the cane sugar in my cupcakes, candy, and donuts. It's not really, I'm just being truthful. It's not, because I see it all the time. It's not going to bring health. It's not going to bring health. It's still super concentrated. It's not the way God originally designed it. So that's it. Thanks, guys.